Okay, I want to respond to some things I've been watching online. I happened to bring up a video of the Breakfast Club, and black people are calling in saying they're not voting for Kamala Harris. All kinds of reasons. You know, I don't want any more Democrats in office. She's not going to do anything for me. She's not black. Yada, yada, yada. Okay. And things were better under Trump. Things were cheaper under Trump. Well, let me just explain something to you. When you say Democrats haven't did anything for you, Democrats did things for you back in 1964, 1965. The Voting Rights Act, the Civil Rights Act ended segregation. You can go to anywhere you want. You were able to go to any school you want if you wanted to get a higher education, what have you. They gave you a chance, okay? That's now being rolled back, but they gave you a chance. See, I was a kid when all that happened. That was 60 years ago. I took advantage of my chance. I studied my butt off. I went to college at HBCU. I came back home and said, okay, I'm going to practice what I learned here. I couldn't. I was in a rural area, a lot of racial barriers. So, guess what I did? I left and went somewhere else. If your seed won't grow in unfertile ground, then you go find some fertile ground to plant it in. So when I went to that other place, I got a good job, professional job, bought a total of 3 houses as I moved from one house to the next, each one a little bit larger. I had assets that were appreciating instead of depreciating. And here I am now. I'm not Bill Gates or anybody or Elon Musk or anybody, but I do okay. And I made that decision all those years ago that I was going to take advantage of my chance. And I hear people say, well, things were cheaper under Trump. Trump had a pandemic. Demand for everything went through the floor. Money was being injected into the economic system to keep it from collapsing. And now, after the pandemic, things bounced up. Companies, everything was kind of mothballed. They had to get distribution going again, production going again, get people back in the labor force again. And guess what? It's not going to decrease back down to meet a lot of folks' ability to pay. Because once it goes up, it may correct a little bit, but it's not going back down to past levels. You're not going to find that $1.99 or $2.99 gallon of ice cream in the store anymore. They consider a sale nowadays to be $5.99 a gallon where I am, and you have to buy two. So I see the pain on people's faces. But a lot of it goes back to 60 years since 1964, we had the Voting Rights Act. 59 years since 1965, we had the Civil Rights Act passed. A lot of it boils down to what happened in those 60 years as to how people are positioned. And this is not just restricted to black people. What did some of the other folks do during that time frame? The world changed around them. Jobs changed, technology changed, and in some cases, it just bypassed them and left them in the dust. Things are not going to recede back and match your ability to pay as far as cost of living. They might adjust, but they're not going all the way back. Even if Trump rolls back some things, it's actually going to hurt these folks that are voting for him, the vast majority of them. So then you hear about cost of housing. Rents are way too high. What happened during the pandemic? Basically, evictions were banned. You couldn't put anyone out if they weren't paying their rent. And guess what some people said? I'm not paying rent if I don't have to. So guess who was taking it? Taking the loss? The landlords. They still had to pay their mortgage if they had a mortgage. So when that ban on eviction was lifted, a lot of them got out of the business. They just sold those properties. I'm not dealing with this anymore. Then supply became restricted. Supply and demand. I learned that in college. Shut off the supply and the demand goes up, prices go up. You expect a landlord to develop a new property, clear land, build homes or apartments, and then take a loss on cheap rent and not get a return on their investment? That's not going to happen. It makes no business sense. So some folks get squeezed out of the housing market. It's unfortunate, but it's a reality. So all these folks, I'm back on the black folks again, saying they're voting for Trump. Well, you need to look around. Guess who's not voting for Trump? John McCain's son, Liz Cheney, who endorsed Kamala Harris. Her father, former Vice President Dick Cheney. These people know something. They're plugged in deep. They know what Trump is going to do. And they're basically decided he's so dangerous that we'll fall on the sword, vote for a Democrat just to flush him out of the system. You need to be paying attention to what other folks are doing that have their ear closer to the ground and have more sources feeding them exactly what is going to take place.